I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I said, well, do you want to know? So we had our 9-year anniversary on Monday or whatever last week. The amount of technology innovation is only getting faster.
Uh-huh.
And we do have a culture that focuses on experimentation, on innovation, embracing new technologies, even though we're in a hyper-regulated, multiple regulatory bodies in every single angle. So there's that balance of, play with things, experiment with things, but within the framework of how do you get the organization and individuals to make that transition? Because it's really hard. Because if you've been doing something in a specific way for a decade or decades, and you say, hey, there's this new tool and it can transform your life. And, we have training programs, we have educational programs, we have resources to get people to invest in it. But there's also got to be some level of desire internally of like, hey,
That's right.
it's not the company is oppressing me on a, God forbid, the 90s ERP system, where it's like, we've got to shove everybody into this new technology, whether you like it or not. It goes also back to what you said, which is it's still a tool achieving an objective, right?
Right.
It's not going to solve all your problems. AI doesn't just solve all your problems. You've got to be able to understand its application towards your problem
Right.
set from that way. But as new technologies, as shifting from doing the installation to a service model can cause a lot of disruption. And, which goes to like, what is PE? Because, I have a favorable perspective. The way I look at it, and I'll take Bain Capital as an example. We have high financial assets, which is direct lending and private credit to senior secured lines of credit to lenders. Simple business. On the flip side, what we recognized is we can do a lot of these things tremendously more effectively, efficiently, and more productively than these lenders.
Sure.
So bits and pieces of that ecosystem, we built High Financial Systems, which is more of a technology focused platform
Right.
to enable these lenders to get the best practices to be enabler from that standpoint. But they're two different cultures. No offense to Michael, myself, and the team in the capital markets group, is a completely different culture than the software development, innovation, data
Yeah. Yeah.
science, analytics from that standpoint. With different types of cultures and with the technology side, in the case of saying going from installation to services, not everybody makes it to the other side.
That's right.
How do we empower team members to set themselves up for success as the pivot in their career is going to be forced on them? Because if they're not using a lot of these technologies, there's not going to be a choice, right? So how do you kind of position that with the different organizations? Because you have to come in representing PE to hit certain goals and metrics, and it's not really an option. So walk us through how can we take some of the lessons of PE and transformation and you as an operator of how we can make those types of transformation and be successful from every team member in the company.
Well, I think that, in you touched on it. To me, the biggest challenge that I have as a CEO of PE-backed organizations is doing consolidation, or people call it a roll-up, right? And my view is it's not an accumulation of assets. It's really taking companies, putting them together, integrating them, leveraging best practices, because you can have 10 companies in the same industry and they all go to market and do things very differently. So getting knowledge transfer, getting them to work with each other and say, hey, you do this really well, they could benefit from it, but they do this really well, you can benefit from it, right? And so, but my biggest challenge is how do you do that and take these companies and candidly professionalize them without breaking the entrepreneurial spirit that made them great to begin with?
Yeah, tell me
And
how
and
we can
so
do that.
so it is a challenge, and I will tell you, it takes a lot of hand-holding, it takes a lot of, but I also say it goes back to, remember what I said, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes ago about seeing the opportunity in everyone and pulling them along, right? And I'll give you a quick story in a moment that'll give it's a great example of this, but what I really like to do is number 1, when we go in and ask people to do things, we tell them the why. We say, hey, here's why we're wanting to do this. Here's why it's important to you. Here is the outcome that you can expect from it. And most of the time, you'll find out that we all have a common goal. The difference is how you view getting there versus how I view getting there. So that's the key. You've got to bridge that gap, right? And so I'll give you a quick example. One of the companies we acquired back at my old company, they were, I don't know, 20 plus million in revenue, about 9.2% EBITDA. Never forget the sellers, the founders left. They appointed someone as the new GM, and great guy, but he was an engineer, right? And he didn't have any, P&L or business experience. I'll never forget. We sat down with him one day, and he called me up and he said, "John, can I talk to you for a few minutes?" I said, "Sure, Dave. What's going on?" He said, "You keep talking about gross margin and EBITDA and absorption rate and all this other stuff." He said, pardon the language, he goes, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about." And I said, "Well, do you want to know?" He said, "Absolutely. I got all day for you." And so once we started to explain to him what those metrics meant and why they were important to him, then he started to make data-driven decisions. And then when we put in NetSuite and Service Trade, and we put those tools in place, and it was painful. Going through an ERP conversion is painful. No one if anyone tells you that they love ERP conversions, please run, okay? Stay away.
They're the consultants that are
Yeah, the
implementing it.
consultants that are making all the money. But at any rate, the point is that we went through it, and again, it was painful, but we told them, "Look, you're doing this right now based on gut feel and intuition and historical, your experience. What if we armed you with tools that you just push a button and get that information? And then you could sit there and stop working in the business and start working on the business." And we transformed a lot of those leaders to individuals to leaders of their businesses. But how does it start? You find one person in the organization that is willing to step up and embrace it, someone that has credibility, has a lot of experience that others will look to. Wrap your arms around that person, get them to, embrace it, and then show them the results, and then I just step aside, and it's like, then it becomes part of our DNA, it becomes part of our culture and everything else. Then you find the next thing to move to.
I think to even further emphasize, so we use the word peach as our value system, and the A is aptitude. And when we say that, it's not that you're a genius, it's that you have the curiosity to ask the questions. And, I
Yep.
push back from what John said to everybody here is how many questions are you asking about the things that you don't know? And who are you proactively going to? I have multiple coaches, whether it's in health. I have so many CEOs that are mentors in every single aspect where I want to go, companies that are 5, 10 times bigger than where we are, different industries, different perspectives, all these other
That's
things.
right.
Constantly, obsessively asking their perspective to look at the same problem from a different angle, similar to what we talked about internationally. How do you talk to people from around the world, getting a different dimension from it?
In many cases, it's going outside the industry is really good
Period.
because they don't have those biases, right? And you can ask someone else that's doing something in a whole entirely different industry, but the core problem is probably the same, right? It's just the nuances of what they're doing. And to your point, whether it's a small company or a multi-billion dollar company, it doesn't matter. A lot of people are facing, similar challenges. Is it go to market? Is it how do, I'm getting margin pressure, how do I do that? How do I mitigate that? Things like that. Absolutely.